speaking of terrorist propaganda, Rutgers professor says he packed up his family and left the U.S. due to death threats.
I'm a historian of fascism, and I understand that the way that authoritarian movements grow is by coming up with a boogeyman term like Antifa.
Rutgers University history professor and author Mark Bray says his life and his views came under attack in recent weeks.
It really started after Trump's executive order declaring Antifa a quote-unquote terrorist organization.
We have a very serious left-wing terror threat in our country. Radicals associated with the domestic terror group Antifa.
Bray says the executive order turned him into a target.
The pace of the death threats accelerated after the Fox News article about the Turning Point petition to have me fired.
This month, the Rutgers Turning Point USA chapter, a political group founded by Charlie Kirk, launched this petition seeking to remove the quote Antifa-aligned professor to protect conservative students from political violence rhetoric. A call to action, Bray says, fueled threats and put his family's safety at risk.
The first one that said they were going to kill me in front of my students.
Bray says he alerted the university, filed a police report, and left the U.S. this week to protect his family.
I landed in Spain this morning after a very mysterious and, in my opinion, fishy cancellation of my flight on Wednesday.
The president of Rutgers Turning Point USA chapter says they condemn any threats of violence, but stand by their call to remove Professor Bray.
You know, Mark Bray's a coward, fundamentally. He thought he could hide behind his books. He thought he could hide behind his degree and radicalize kids from the safety of his classroom.
Dude, this is his job. His job is to teach about fascism. By the way, once again, a lot of people are saying, oh, you're not part of the team, buddy. Yeah, except, what did I tell you? Modern fascism doesn't work that way. Modern fascism is way more diverse. Everything in the United States of America has been hit with the DEI ray. This has all the components. It's anti-intellectualist. It's aggressively, it's behaving in this like incredibly militant fashion towards singled out targets that they see as the fucking enemy. And they are the enemy because they are educating people on the way fascism works.
All right, let's bring in Lara Trump.
Jimmy Kimmel blasted for a claim on Antifa. I don't know what he's talking about. It's so funny. This is my favorite type of news making, as you guys know, is my pet peeve, which is first you blast the person and then you do additional coverage on how everyone is blasting this person. It's like, no, it's you. You're the one who's doing the blasting. The f do you mean everyone's really mad at Jimmy Kimmel for his Antifa statement? It's like, no, it's just you. And now you're trying to continue the conversation by claiming, oh, wow, everyone is really mad. Tom Emmer said that the No Kings protest next week was going to be a terrorist event, and Mike Johnson said it was a Hamas rally. Terrorist just means valid target to the United States government. It's scary stuff how comfortable they are throwing that term around. Yep.
I'll have you react to Alexis's reporting on what's happening in Rutgers University. What I find interesting is that this professor, writes this entire book about Antifa. He says, I'm not part of Antifa, but I just, I teach about it. And then you have somebody like Jimmy Kimmel who says, there is no Antifa. I want you to listen to this sound clip from Kimmel.
There's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons. We've captured the Chupacabra, everyone.
Okay, so what's happening here?
Well, there is Antifa. This White House classified them as a domestic terrorist organization, which they are.
I said this the first day, bro. Like, because there is no, like, real organization that is like Antifa, with the exception of like, I don't know, like Rose City Antifa or whatever the right? Like that's not, there is no like actual defined organization that you are targeting. Anyone and everyone can be considered Antifa. And the administration has obviously made that very clear. Terrorism already is an intentionally vague definition, and it is utilized to take away people's due process and their rights and their liberties and prosecute them and maybe even kill them, right? Without any sort of pushback. And for that reason, because it completely contradicts the First Amendment in the United States of America, it has never been applied domestically. There have been times where the First Amendment has been violated. Obviously, America is rabidly anti-communist, and there have been different ways in which America has violated any sort of like discontent, any sort of dissent, or people that are engaging in any sort of dissent. Antifa is also vague by definition, by design, in the same way that terrorism is a vague standard to apply, a vague term to apply to whoever the fuck you want to extrajudicially kill or apprehend. This is very dangerous. And the reason why it's very dangerous is because anything and everything can be considered anti-fascist in nature. And that's precisely the reason why Trump didn't just talk about like all of the little radicals in Black Bloc, and instead immediately started talking about George Soros, Act Blue, and all of the payment processes that the Democrats use. When expanded on the definition of what it means to be Antifa, which is once again a decentralized movement, therefore everyone from your grandparents who fought the Nazis in World War II down to you telling a racist that they're being racist, those are all acts of anti-fascism, no matter how little or no matter how organized they may be. This is precisely the reason why the administration can use this vague standard and apply it to everyone and anyone, including former Trump voters if they choose to, and claim that any kind of discontent is Antifa and must be stamped out.
They use violence to intimidate ICE officers, people they disagree with, push back on law enforcement, and try to stop anything, that's the way of life in this country as we know it, that they disagree with. And that's not the way things should be done. So Antifa absolutely exists. I don't know what Jimmy Kimmel's talking about there. This professor, I thought it was funny. He said, I don't subscribe to it. I just study it. I just teach it. I mean, I think it's a little outrageous. And I think he's probably upset, Aisha, that he's been exposed for what he is. And he's been exposed by a lot of these, individuals with Turning Point. I am very happy to see that we have people on campus now who are able to express themselves. For so long, it felt like that it was just an indoctrination factory. And that's exactly what a professor like this very clearly is doing to so much of our youth out there. But now you have these individuals in Turning Point, starting new chapters across this country, making sure that they're unafraid.
I will say this is definitely an incredibly worrisome development, but this is, I think, one aspect, especially if the Democrats and everybody else, like even the normies who don't really give a about politics, I suspect they will mobilize against this. And I also think that the courts will hold the First Amendment, because if they don't, it's over. There's two key things in the Constitution. I mean, there's many good things in the Constitution, but there's two key aspects of the Constitution that are supposed to limit the control of the government. And no, I'm not talking about the Second Amendment, okay? Due process and free speech. Those are the two key safeguards of American theoretical democracy. I love when dummies will be like, oh, Second Amendment, dude. Yeah, totally. Yeah, Second Amendment is totally protecting everybody, dude. You're right. If due process goes away and free speech goes away, it's over. And I still think that the courts will protect those two key components as it stands. And I think that there will be a lot of mass mobilization and mass discontent if the administration tries to go after these two things. Regardless of whether or not there is a compliant media ecosystem that actually pushes people's attention elsewhere, I think people will still get mad. They'll get mad enough.
They're speaking. We are 1 month out from that horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. And man, would he be happy to see the way that these students have made their voices loud and made sure that they are unafraid in everything that they say. So look, we'll see what Rutgers decides to do. Interesting, the guy fled the country, though. Maybe that tells us a lot about him.
Maybe it does.
This is like when my haters are like, this pussy doesn't want to go to TwitchCon. I'll kill him if he goes. When I was like, I'm not going to go to TwitchCon because I don't want to threaten the safety of others by being there. She's doing the same thing to this professor. He's like, yeah, that pussy better not show his stupid ass face on American soil. Okay. If my father-in-law has something to do with it, what a coward. He escaped the country. He better not come back here. If he comes back here, I'll show him what's what. It's like, okay, well, you kind of proved why he had to flee the country, which is an insane thing to begin with. Like, what? Why is everyone becoming a school shooter? What the is going on here? Who's Laura Trump's father-in-law? Laura Trump's father-in-law think? Who could it be? Who could Laura Trump's father-in-law be? Could be anybody, really.
Well, I hope it ends with law and order being reestablished in a place like Chicago. Go talk to the residents of the south side of Chicago there, Aisha. I'm sure they'll tell you that they need help, that they don't feel safe in their own communities. If you go to Washington, D.C., where you saw President Trump bring in the National Guard, where you saw him federalize the police force, the people there and the citizens of Washington, D.C. are very grateful that he did that. You've seen murders drop out of the bottom. You've seen violent crime go down as well. And these people are finally able to live their lives again.
It's just so funny that there is never any need from any media at all to just like actually talk to the citizens who are like, we don't like the troop presence, and also things were fine. Like, not only were things totally fine, but also on top of that, things have rapidly become not fine with the military being deployed to our streets. Why ask the average people that live there when you can just talk over them? Because your audience is not the people of DC or the people of Chicago. Your audience is the rural folk who don't actually see the military presence in their neighborhoods. It's a culture of domination, dominating the other, dominating the enemy. The enemies of the Republicans are the liberal elite, the establishment liberals, and the radical socialists and the communists. Because these people are objectively fearful of going into any of these big cities anyway, they can just live with this complete false notion, this complete false reality that like these cities are constantly on fire. There's so many black and brown people and they're just like lighting shit on fire. And they're robbing people blind, and then they're killing them. And then the cops are like, oh, we can't do anything because woke. Like, no one is getting arrested. Or when people do get arrested, then the woke judge says, oh, well, George Soros gave me Jewish money so I can release the black and brown people back into the streets. Like, that's literally what 30 to 40% of this country believes. I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. Like, unironically, 30 to 40% of this country believes what I just described to you. And there is a steady flow of misinformation that they consume that constantly reinforces this idiotic notion. 30 or 40% of the voters, you're right. Not though. I would say 30 to 40% of the country. No, I'll take it. I'll say 30 to 40% of the country believes it, not just the voters.
Whether it's Brandon Johnson, whether it's J.B. Pritzker, who I guess feel like they have to play politics, they have failed the citizens of Chicago. All you have to do is look at the statistics there. You can see that crime is up. And, you know, what President Trump wants to do is he wants to allow ICE agents to go in and do their job and enforce the law as it is written. If Brandon Johnson or J.B. Pritzker has a problem with that, they need to take it to the United States Congress. President Trump is trying to allow these ICE agents to do their job.
Isn't talking about the country people the same thing she's doing? Are you saying I'm doing the same thing she's doing? Do you think I'm lying when I say that a big chunk of the people that listen to this narrative, which is 90% of the Republicans, and trust this narrative, which is 90% of the Republicans, this is statistically bad. This is backed by stats. Liberals, for the most part, have a diverse media diet that even includes Fox News. Republicans, on the other hand, there's Pew Center of research studies conducted on this stuff, on the media diet parsed through people's like political affiliations. For the most part, Republicans or self-identifying Republicans get their news almost exclusively from Fox News. Whereas when you look at the liberals, they have a much more diverse media diet. This is why there's this narrative that like liberal media, like media is liberal and they dominate everyone's collective consciousness. Look, I agree with you, but I would like you to get out in the real world. I know that is a mad suggestion right now. No, I do get out in the real world quite a bit. I encounter people that have this kind of opinion. And not only that, but also statistics back the things that I'm saying. Here, I'll give you one great example of this. People think crime is on the rise in this country, but when you actually look at the data across the board, crime is back to historic lows. Okay. And the trend lines for crime are going down, as has been the case for the past couple of decades. But people still think crime is actually, when asked, people still think crime is absolutely out of control. When asked further why they think crime is out of control, they say crime is actually not high in my neighborhood, but it's higher elsewhere. That's what I'm talking about. one must ask the question how people arrive at this conclusion. This is a conclusion that I, am this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what I mean. People that don't live in big cities, or people that don't live in the big city that they're talking about. Like, because there are, right-wingers that live in New York, for example, that might not think New York crime is out of control, but they think or might not experience it themselves, but they see it on TV and they think it's happening elsewhere. But that is a constant in the American collective consciousness. Americans think crime is out of control, just not in their neighborhood. It's just everywhere else. My dad has never been to LA or SF and constantly tells me how bad they are to me, a person who's lived in LA for 4 years and San Francisco for 2.5. Exactly. And ironically enough, if you actually do go out and talk to normies and coworkers and whatnot, you've probably heard this dynamic. People do it to me all the time. People used to come in here and talk about like how crime in my backyard was completely out of control, that I was going to get shot any moment. Well, now they still tell me I'm going to get shot any moment, but that's usually just a death threat. But in the past, they used to say, like, dude, what are you talking about? Crime in Los Angeles is completely out of control. It's like, well, I live here. I went to the ICE protest. People were like, LA's on fire. LA is on fire. LA is completely on fire. It's like, no, I'm here. I'm here at the protests. Okay. I saw the fires directly. I stood next to them. I walked 10 minutes away from the protests where the 3 Waymos were burning and got ice cream. LA was not on fire back then, and it certainly isn't right now. Neither is Portland, and neither is Chicago. But these guys keep saying that that's what's going on.